grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny, sunny, sunny side of the street.
Hi, welcome to another Sunny Side of the Street. I'm your host, Todd Gross, a clinical psychologist and director of Adams Street Associates in Newton. And for now 20 years, we have been doing shows where we really try to emphasize people and organizations that are doing positive things as opposed to some of the negative things you see on the news. And I think today's show is going to be another example of the kind of people that are really working to do some of the things that really bring positivity, and in this case, into government and into connections between government and the community. We basically, when we deal with our government, a lot of times we have lots of feelings of distrust. We wonder if we're getting the right story, and communication, trust, and even the information and how it comes is a problem, and listening is a problem, and being able to treat each other civilly about what we disagree with between each other and between us and the people who govern us. It's all important. And so when people decide to really live their values by saying, we want to do something where we can connect to the people, listen and learn what they have to say, and also act on it. We have two people here today from the Newton City Council, who I'll introduce in a minute, who not only talk the talk, but they are walking the walk. They're doing things to try to really make a connection with the community. So over here I have John Oliver, who is from a councilor from, District 1.
Ward 1.
At large,
yep,
right?
You got it. That's correct.
And Martha Bixby. Hi, Martha. And a councilor from Ward 6. Yes. Great. Well, it's great to have you both. And maybe as a start for our audience, I wonder if you could say a little bit about yourself, maybe your family, a little bit about your history in Newton, too. And maybe I'll start with you, John.
Sure. Thanks. First, thanks for having us here today. I think this is an important topic for us to discuss, make sure everybody at home knows what's going on.
You bet.
I've been a city councilor for almost 3.5 years now.
Okay.
I ran first in a special election a couple of years ago. I moved to Newton in '02. I'm originally from Michigan.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there were a lot of things, when we first moved here, our son was born in '06. We bought our first home in '07, got involved in the PTOs, got involved in coaching soccer and all those wonderful things you do as a parent, right? Yeah. And then I started to really pay attention to what was going on in Newton. Mm-hmm. And there were some opportunities, I think, for improvement. So that got me kind of into the game, so to speak, as a city councilor. And since then, it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about this city and how it works and how things happen.
Yeah.
And again, happy to be here.
Well, great. And we're happy to have you, too. And how about for you, Martha? Tell us a little bit for yourself, too.
Thanks. So, yes, I'm a brand new counselor, although it's been just over a year now, I guess. Thank you. So I'm a ward counselor, so I represent Newton Center, Newton Highlands, Thompsonville, and a tiny corner of Chestnut Hill. And we moved to Newton somewhat more recently. We've been here about 6 years.
Where were you before?
We came from California.
Oh, nice.
Although having been in the Boston area before that.
Yeah.
And so we've loved Newton and really cared a lot about our community. And similar to John, involved with the PTOs and youth sports and all of the things that kind of young parents or parents of young children do in our community. And between the pandemic and, just it feels like a lot of things were kind of happening to younger families and, to all of our residents. And so to have more voices be a part of that process was part of the reason why I ran. and it has been quite the learning process.
I'll bet.
There's we've had a lot that has happened so far in this first half a year, but it feels really great to be a part of a community that cares so much about what's happening and wants to have a say and to try and be a part of that and help people have a voice in our city government.
That's great. Well, we're lucky to have you too, and I'm really glad. I know that that the city council, you formed a subgroup within the council, a community dialogue working group, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the mission of the group, what that's about. Whoever wants
Sure.
to, yeah.
Sure, I'll start off, and like I said before, please correct me where I go astray. But so this working group was really formed as an outcome of the strike. All right, the NTA strike.
Yes.
It wasn't because of the NTA strike. There have been a lot of issues, like Martha just mentioned. We have a lot of passionate residents, which is fantastic. I think that one of the less desirable outcomes of a group of passionate individuals in the city is the conflict that arises.
Sure.
And there are a lot of people on city council, our city council president and vice president in particular, who initiated this group, were sensing that it was becoming more negative than productive, right? Just to think about it off the cuff there, that's how I would kind of describe what was going on. And we've had a series of challenging issues here in Newton, going back to the pandemic and perhaps even before that, that have kind of built on each other. And we just felt that there was a pressing need to remind ourselves we're all here for the same reason. We're trying to make Newton the best version, we're trying to find the best version of Newton that we can, and not everybody's going to agree on what that is, but we've got to get back to that, what's the shared vision here?
That's a very important thing, to be able to really deal with the differences between people and help them work on that in a way that you can come to some consensus, and it also stays respectful and civil. And I wonder what it was like for you coming into what he's describing too as a big issue right off the bat.
Right. Well, I mean, I think as a new counselor, in some ways I was experiencing it the way the public experiences it.
Right.
Not having been through a budget process before, not having, knowing generally sort of what each responsibility of each branch of government was, but, learning as
Sure.
we went as well. So I think, in that way, and also having young kids at home,
Right.
I was seeing all pieces of it, and it was a really tough situation. And I do think everybody wanted what's best for Newton. It just, like John said, it became very negative and distrustful, as many of our city conversations have over the past while.
Some period of time. Right.
We, the goal here is really to try and just find ways that we can talk face to face again more, figure out how we communicate, figure out how we can have disagreements, but have them be productive and move towards something and not destructive and destroying trust in our community.
Sure. I think you both really laid the groundwork really well for why you would want to do something with and get a group of people really working on this. And I can't think of an issue more important, even nationally, but it's also local, for people to learn how to deal with issues and come to some agreement, and also treat each other with respect. And so I love what this is based on. To get into a little of the guts of it for the people to hear, I understand that you had a February 8th meeting, and some objectives came out of it specifically. So I want to have your help to give the listeners sort of a nice view of the sequence of what happened and how you operated and some of the thinking behind it, because that was so impressive to me. That's why I wanted to have you talk about it. So tell me about the objectives that came out of that too.
You want me to go?
Well, just a quick bit about the process, I guess.
Sure, all right,
perhaps,
that'd be good.
is,
Yeah.
And again, it's been a few months, so I think
Right.
that the idea was to really start from hearing from the community.
Yes.
So we did a survey, we did a lot of outreach to community groups and asked all the counselors that have newsletters and others to send it out to really try and get as much input as possible from a wide range of people. We also held a community input session at City Hall. So all of this is really based off of what we heard from the community in lots of different ways, both from that survey and then also proactive conversations that each member of the working group had, as well as other counselors. So it was really grounded in, we need to hear now what everybody is thinking once people have had a moment to kind of pause and get out of the heat of the moment.
That's great. It takes us into the thinking of how you were going to proceed. And
Yeah.
what came out of that meeting in terms of objectives?
Well, I think there are a couple of key thoughts or words that
Yes.
kind of, right, Martha just focused on the first one, which is critical, which is let's get that feedback. Let's make sure that we're hearing or confirming what it is we thought we heard as individuals when we were kind of in the midst of this of the strike. And then from there, what we really kind of confirmed for ourselves is, residents are looking for, and it's not just residents either, because we have to remember, like, a lot of people live in Newton, roughly 90,000 people. A lot of people work in Newton, especially like when you think about teachers. Vast majority of our teachers do not live in Newton. So it's not just residents, but when we start to think about, the objectives, it was gathering feedback, figuring out how to better collaborate, not only with the public, but with each other.
Yes.
Right? School committee, city council, the mayor's office, and let's face it, throughout Newton we have many groups that represent large constituencies that we need to hear from, whether those are PTOs, special interest groups, if you're talking about, electrification or things going on in Newton that are really important topics. And we reached out to as many of them as we possibly could and invited all of them to join us and provide feedback. So I think that's really kind of the foundation of the 4 stated objectives.
Okay.
It's collaboration, gathering information, that sort of thing, so that we can really, how do we know when we're being better at communicating and being as accessibly transparent with the information and how we do things in the city, that I think a lot of people were questioning or just didn't understand,
Yes.
frankly.
Well, what I learned from what you both said, too, that I really respect is that this process was really inclusive. That's very important. And also that there was a real emphasis on, you said, hearing and listening to people, and then getting the feedback, not just hearing it, but listening to it with an ear of, we want to know really what you think. And when that's communicated to people, that already starts them off in a more positive vein, to me. And so I love that that's the way you did this.
Because I think that in playing that back, from the way I tend to think about it is,
Yeah.
we have to continuously remind ourselves to listen to understand, not to listen to respond. Right? It's because one has to come before the other. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're just talking to yourself again.
Yes. And when that word's also important, when people feel like they're understood, then they're more willing to sort of engage in a dialogue that can lead to something productive. I know that you focused on the teachers' strike around this, and
Timing-wise, yep.
and I wanted to ask a little, maybe you can help us again on the process of how did you come up with the questions that you asked people? Because I went through that and I liked the questions. I think it was a good way to draw out a lot of information, and I saw the responses. There was a lot of response.
350 plus, yeah.
That's impressive. Can you tell me a little bit about that process and the thinking around which questions to ask about? When you have a big crisis, it's important, and a lot of complicated issues, to break it down into some specific questions that people can really focus on is better than trying to give a global answer in some ways, I think. You get
Agreed.
more feedback.
Yeah, and I think that, if I recall, the first question we asked was, what was your experience during this process?
Okay.
Because we didn't want to assume that we knew what to start off with, right?
Yeah.
We wanted people to sound off. Here's what I experienced. Here's what I was looking for. Here's what I didn't want to hear. Whatever was on their mind, that's what we wanted to capture.
Gotcha.
And boy, did we get a lot of,
Yes.
We got a
lot of variety, too.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yes, yeah, and I think that one of the themes that really struck me was, and you've alluded to this already, one of the things that struck me was everyone seemed to have their preferred source of information.
Yes.
Right? And I don't think this is limited to the strike only. I think this
Sure, it's
this-
a
this-
microcosm of what really happens.
yeah, it's a thread that weaves through all of these topics. And what really kind of drove it home for me was I had my preferred source of information. So that's who or where I shopped for my information. But everybody else, it wasn't that the information they were putting out there didn't gel with how I thought. They were lying.
I don't trust what they heard.
I
There
don't
was a
trust
lot
it.
of
There was a lot
that
of
theme in
mistrust.
there.
Exactly.
And that's national too. We're having that
It's-
Well put.
all over the place.
Absolutely.
So you got a very a really representative sample of what the issues are.
Right.
The trust and listening.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there was other questions too. Just so it might be good for them to hear some of the other questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we pushed into areas of, and where were you getting your information?
That's
that
it.
was a big
Okay.
one, and a lot of people, were saying, oh, I was listening to, the mayor's office, or I wasn't listening to the mayor's office, or my city councilors, or not my
Right.
city council. So it was we saw the polarization there as well.
Okay.
And the role of social media, I think,
Yeah.
came through a lot
Yes.
on that, and how much people were perhaps not looking to, but at least receiving information
Yeah.
from social media platforms. And I think, that can often be where a lot of the questions and distrust can come from is, people put things out there, what do we do with it? And, then that trickles down to all the other information
Right.
sources as well. So.
It really makes the point that people are getting their information from different sources, and you have to know that, and you have to hear what they're getting from those sources and put it all together. And people need to hear that, understand that people they're talking with, that they disagree with, are getting information from different sources.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
a little bit of comment on what you're so far the results you feel are of all that feedback that you got. And just some conclusions or anything, if it's not too early to make any.
Yeah, I think, in terms of conclusions, we were already talking about some of the themes as
Yeah, the themes. Yeah.
that the term we kind of used. I think that what we learned is, as Martha just pointed out, we have to fish where the fish are. We have to understand that people are interacting in social media, whether we are or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are the questions they have? What is it they do and don't understand about how their own city government works? How does the budget work? What's the process? People were really surprised, I think, about some very important yet minute details. So for me, those are the takeaways that I've had so far. And then as we move forward and start to get into more of a, this might be a big assumption, but once we get into a solution space,
Yes.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much impact we're even able to have on some of the concerns that were coming, to us in waves during the strike.
Anything else that struck you too?
Well, I think we're about to have a conversation again with the full council
Oh, that's the
about
follow-up.
about sort of what the next steps are that we can all take. And we had a very productive conversation at the end of March with most of the council about this, and got a sense of what people felt comfortable with and felt was most appropriate, again, within the role of the council, which is what we can we can do at this moment. Although we have shared all of our findings and themes with other branches of government as well. So it'll be great to see how that conversation goes and what our concrete next steps are as a council. I think there's a couple of things that we're very excited about doing. John in particular has been taking the lead on making sure that we can do a training on these shared, basically how to talk to each other again, training, which seems sometimes like something we should all just know, but we all need a reminder, and we need a community baseline of what are the ground rules for how to have constructive dialogue? And it is a shared, I mean, through the themes we saw, this is something people want. People don't want to be angry and distrustful and, you know, not sure what's going on. They want to feel like they can be a part of something and a part of a community that's working towards something. So I think having some of those basic, you know, ground rules and shared conversations and dialogue steps will be very helpful. So if we can do that training as a council, I know leadership in Newton Public Schools has gone through a training.
Right.
So if different branches of government can do these trainings, and you know, if members of the community are interested, there's books and some of these materials we can also share with folks so that we can just all start from a point where we're not calling each other liars or you
That's
know
right, name
jumping
calling,
right to
Sure.
you know something that's very negative or very unproductive. And so I'm excited about that. And we've also got you know other recommendations that we'll be talking about. The counselors have been going on a number of school tours to
They've
really
been
see
great.
what's going on in you know our from everything from the preschool up to the high schools. And that's been really informative, but doing more connections with the schools. Unless you know you're in there every day with your kids, it can be hard to know what's going on, but it's such a huge part of our city's budget and everything we're proud of. So that's been another big piece. And we've got you know some other goals about just sharing more information, like John said, just how does this all work and what are the levers that can be pulled to make change and all of that. So I'm hopeful that a number of these can move forward on whatever timeline is realistic and feasible.
That's great. One thing I wanted to comment on what you said that I really liked, the importance of the dialogue with people. And I was thinking as a counselor, if you have two clients that, let's say there was a marriage, one of the things, and they're fighting and there's all this discrepancy and miscommunication, one of those rules is fair fighting. And they have all these rules, and I was thinking some of those principles of fair fighting are also applied to on a larger scale. You know, it is
Maybe
very
you can lead us. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll talk.
Right.
Well, I love what you
Yeah,
guys are
that's
doing. Well, I'm just you kind of said things about this already, but in what would you say, based on the mission statement and all the things we've talked about, what do you think are, looking at it so far, the biggest strengths of what you're doing, and also things that you wish you could improve on too, with what you're doing?
I might answer that kind of in the opposite, right?
Yeah.
I think that one of our biggest challenges, frankly, is, and I'm going to make this up, 90-some-odd% of people in Newton aren't focused on, nor should they be focused on, what's going on in their city government. They've elected us as their representatives to
walk
you know,
away.
you'll
take care of that.
Yeah, you got this. And then when something, you know, when there's a bump in the road, when there's a problem, when there's a strike, when there's a, you know, a tax override on the ballot, people tend to, you know, oh, this is going to affect me.
It affects
in
me,
these
and now
other
it's a
ways.
crisis, so now
Right.
I'm interested, but the rest of the time,
Right. So my biggest concern, and you'll see this in the work that we're producing, we're trying to figure out how do we get people's attention, right? Put materials in front of them in such a way that they can come back to it when they need it, when there's something that is affecting them or that has piqued their interest or what have you. And I think that is a challenge. And if you use that as the lens through which, you know, to read what it is we're putting out there in terms of what, like Martha said earlier, as a city council, what can we do? That thread is in there, right? How do we get this information in front of people? Leave some markers, if you will, so that it's accessible, simple to find, so that when they're ready, it's there for them.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, people invest in the heat of the moment, and then we need to figure out how to, you know, and there are 24 city councilors. There are
It's a lot of people.
You know, 8 school committee members plus the mayor. We are here, and so to also just remind people, we are here. We want to hear from you. We want to be a part of this. We want to be listening, and we are working in the in-between times to try and make things better. But that only works when we know, and everybody's invested in this process to the extent possible.
Yes.
So we're grateful for the moments when things can be a little steadier and we can invest in this, and then we need to build for those moments when there's big disagreement so that we can make that collaborative.
Yeah, I'm with you. We just a couple minutes left, but a closing question would be to give you both a chance to talk about the values of trust and civility and how they play for each of you in this. So just a brief comment so people can hear, because this is a beautiful approach you're taking, and just to accent the values underneath would be good for people to hear.
Sure. I'll share my couple of thoughts there. I think that trust, as far as I'm concerned, is built up of two primary components, right? You have to be well-intentioned. People have to understand what it is you're trying to get done and buy into those principles.
Why you're doing this.
Right? And you have to demonstrate that you're capable of delivering.
Yes.
Right? That there's some sense of, I trust this person not only because of where they're coming from, but that they can do it.
And their actions are
Or they're
consistent
going to
with
do
what
it.
they're saying they're going to do.
Exactly. And I think that part of that is, as Martha pointed out, right now, what's this person doing?
Yeah.
And then what's that person's track record? I think that those two things combined are that second element.
All right. I
That's
appreciate
kinda how I
that.
think about it.
That's a very interesting way to. And what would you add for just a minute or so
Yeah,
here?
I mean, I think the concept of civility is really important here, and that's where again we've been talking about it this whole time, but we can have disagreements. That's important too, but we have to fight fair, and we have to find ways to make those disagreements grounded in the fact that we all are hoping for a better community. We're all working towards that. We're all in looking out for each other, and that might be different, and it's very personal. So many of the issues that we deal with on the city council are very personal. It's what your kid's school looks like. It's buildings next door to your home.
Right.
It's
That's
trees that you love, and the lake or swimming place near your home. These are really personal and important things. So it can be easy to be very defensive or very concerned about what is personal to you. And so we can take that and that care and that concern and work together to try and solve the problem in the best way possible.
That's really
I think that's great. And I think if you think about the civility concept and accepting people's feelings, because you're listening and understanding and trying, but also everybody has to take responsibility for how they deliver what their feelings are too.
Yeah.
You did it, guys. In just a short time, you just talked about something that I think is such a model for our whole country. And it certainly is the sunny side of the street that there are two wonderful people trying to do it. So I want to thank you
And a
both.
lot more, but thank you.
Yes,
Yep.
and to all them too. The
Yep.
same feeling. Thank you also for coming on the show. I really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Yep.
And thank you everybody for watching, and tune in again soon for another On the Sunny Side of the Street. Take care of everybody.
I like to eat apples and bananas. I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.